everybody, welcome to a new week, and as promised, this is part 2 of last week's episode. I know the episode was long in itself despite it being only one part, but as promised, this is part 2, and just a recap on what we discussed last time. So some of the things were basically what you need to consider when you're picking an e-commerce site or a web platform. Your internet service provider was very important. If your platform can be navigated well both on web and mobile was also something else. How easy it is to navigate. Is it easy for people to shop on? Is it easy for people to make payments and things like that? The other aspect was features you should have on your website, like size charts, how your photos appear, all the details you need to add so that people can completely understand what it is they're purchasing, like the type of fabric, the content, how to care for the fabric, the sizing, and if the fabric has stretch, like the percentages of fabric and all that. So all that we covered last week. So this week we're going to talk more about the features you need either on your web platform or your e-commerce platform. I am going to actually discuss both of them separately so that you can make a decision. I would definitely advise that you start with e-commerce before you invest in your web platform so that you can just gauge, because the goodness of a lot of e-commerce platforms is that they already have audiences, they're engaging, so you already have clients who are already there, or also you can direct your clients there. The badness is that sometimes you don't have access to these clients. Some e-commerce platforms completely ensure that you do not have direct interaction with clients unless you interact on their platform, and you cannot interact with them outside your platform. So yeah, either way, it's always good to work towards having your own website, and also of course having a brick and mortar store, which we are going to discuss next week. Now, point of note, the end of this episode I had already recorded previously, so it's also going to be a bit blurry, but it's a very good summary and a very good recap of everything we're going to cover today. So enjoy the episode, and I hope I'll see you later. So we kick off with e-commerce. E-commerce is basically the activity of electronically buying or selling products online over using a service. So basically, when I'm talking about e-commerce platforms, I do mean people who give you an opportunity to sell on their platforms. Specifically, we are looking right now at marketplaces. So example of some popular marketplaces that Kenyans use are Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Africrea, Shop Zetu, Jumia, Gigi, formerly known as OLX, and also Facebook is very popular. Now, I know some of these may be familiar to you, maybe Amazon, eBay. Etsy is actually a platform for handmade items. That's what they are known for. That's what they've built their brand on. I don't know if it's completely true that everybody does that, but that's what it's known. It's the biggest marketplace for handmade. Africrea is the biggest marketplace right now for made in Africa items from Africans and Africa diaspora. Shop Zetu right now is the biggest made in Kenya marketplace for fashion. Africa is also fashion. Then Jumia is the biggest marketplace, I think, in Africa, but they are a mass marketplace, so that means they sell everything and anything. OLX or Gigi, it's a place where you can do listings, and Facebook also you can do listings. Basically, it almost works like the way eBay works, where you can just list maybe one item that you have and you want to sell it off, and maybe other people also sell the same item and all that. So they all have different things they offer. They all have different ways they engage people who sell on their platforms, and they all have very many rules and things like that. So these are the most popular that I have mentioned. I am sure there are very many that I have not mentioned, but these are the ones I wanted to point out. And I also pointed these out because they sell fashion items. So I wanted to specifically highlight the ones that I'm very familiar with that sell fashion items. I have sold on Jumia, I have sold on Africrea, and I have sold maybe Facebook, you can say, to some extent, maybe Instagram more than Facebook. Then I have bought things from Amazon, I've bought things from eBay, I've bought things from Etsy, I have bought from Jumia, I've bought from Shops Z2, I've bought from Gigi, I've bought from all these platforms. So I have experience at least as a user and as a seller. So yeah, keep that in mind. So we are going to talk about things you should consider when you're comparing these online marketplaces, because some of them will want you to sell in bulk, some of them will want you to sell minimal, some of them have rules about the regions you can access, some of them have rules about how they pay. Maybe they pay you monthly, maybe they pay you immediately. Some of them will expect you to take care of your shipping, others have shipping options and shipping partners. Most of them probably do offer payment because that is how they will get their percentages. You also have to check the percentages they take and the percentages they don't take. So let's go through the list. So location of where the place is located, or the head office of the place, is very, very important, because sometimes it speaks to the customer service you will get because you are practically their customer. There are some platforms that take a percentage from your sales, and there are some platforms that take a percentage and your listing and a listing fee. If you list your item, they take a percentage. That is especially Etsy. So the location matters, their reach matters. So because the location matters, if they're in the States, you might find that they have probably a bigger audience because Americans are more used to buying things online maybe than another region and things like that. And also it also speaks to the audience you'll be exposed to, so that also helps you. The kind of products you sell on the platform also matter. If you're selling on Etsy, it makes sense to sell your handmade minimal order items where you don't have to mass produce something. If you're selling on Amazon, you have to mass produce. If you're selling on Shops Z2, you can do small runs. If you're selling on Gigi, maybe you're trying to get rid of, or eBay, you are trying to get rid of maybe one item you're tired of having in the house or something, or you just want to advertise your business and you want to specifically push a certain item that people are always looking for. So I guess you always just have to check the rules that they are giving you when you're using the platform. The cost also of what you're selling matters, because you're not just going to sell anything on all the platforms. You have to check the average price of things that sell very well. Usually when I want to apply to an e-commerce marketplace, I always ask them what the average thing that sells really, really well and what really sells, because not all marketplaces are good for fashion items. So you always have to check if fashion items sell there, because some places will tell you fashion items, but they also include things like accessories, and you might find accessories sell better than clothes. So it's important to know. Check all the fees they have, the listing fee, the annual membership, the commission, the shipping, if they offer that, fulfillment costs, payment, processing, and all that. You really, really have to check all the costs. Popularity of the site is important, because you need to know how much traffic they get, the number of buyers they get, what the buyers buy. It's very important to ask those questions. The competition you have, maybe there are people who are selling something similar to what you have. It's important to check that out. The features they have, especially their customer support for the people buying and even for you, because sometimes there are those disputes and all that. And always understand that these guys are always taking the buyer's side. So ensure that it's in line with you. The fulfillment, and make sure that it benefits you. And just ensure that you really, really ask the questions. Know when you're getting your money. Know when your customer will get the item. If it's in 3 days and the partner they are using for shipping says 3 days, you ship 3 days. I would advise you, if you are not getting, if they don't have a partner to ship, definitely ensure that you use the best. Internationally, from Africa, DHL has proven to be the best. Locally in Kenya, I would definitely advise you to use either G4S or Wells Fargo. They do door-to-door next-day deliveries, or if the person is close, you could use the apps like Uber and Bolt and all that. Now we move on to the setup and selling tips for your marketplace. Some of this might sound repetitive from what I've just said. So before you set up, try and buy a competitor's item. I usually do that just so I can get the user experience of buying an item from the platform, just seeing how things go, just seeing how sizing is done and things like that. So for clothes, set up an account. If you want to start out, set up an account, maybe list your first product, check your engagement. My advice would be definitely try the most popular thing that you already sell. Remember, I had already said that it is important to consider selling on a pop-up to know what is popular before you put it online. Check the engagement, check how people are receiving the item, if you're getting returns and things like that, and then add complementary products because there needs to be some cohesion. People need to know you for something, so add complementary products, and then after that now you can start adding more and more products. Another thing, track your customer returns and complaints. Just make sure you get all the feedback because of course we all like compliments, but it's important to check all these things. Ensure the pricing is either in local currency or in dollars. Most of the time, most platforms will tell you to list in dollars. The ones in Kenya will list it in shillings. I have seen like platforms like Africrea have a way that if the system kind of identifies your location or you type in your location, then the price will be shown in your currency. So that's very important. Check the terms and conditions of the platform. They're usually many, and sometimes they do change. Sometimes you get this email of our terms have changed. You need to check because you never know what terms will change. Sometimes things that change are taxes for the country that you are shipping to. Maybe there are new tax laws, or sometimes your country has brought up a new tax law for that country. A lot of these online platforms are always changing their regulations. Then also check the online marketplaces are different from how different they are from the standard e-commerce marketplaces. Some really focus on moving large items, others focus on high-end niche. There are some places I haven't even mentioned on my list because they are very high-end and niche, and they even pick the kind of products they want on the platform because they want to have a specific aesthetic. So you need to check. Maybe most of those high-end ones tend to have a smaller audience, and the high volume ones have a lot of audience, but doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have that much visibility. So you really have to play the game and check. And there are some places like Etsy that have a strategy of how to appear on top of the search, and they even advertise, they even partner with you to advertise. Like, you really just need to know how the platform works, and a lot of these changes come with time. And also just check the frequently asked questions for both you as the seller and the buyer, because there's always a segment where there are probably questions that are always coming up. Always check, especially if big platforms that take a very long time to get back to you. You might find that some of your answers are in the frequently asked questions, and if the answer is there, then you don't need to keep asking. And if possible, something I did not add here, join a community of sellers from your country that sell on the platform. You might find that you get faster responses if you are together as a group than if you're trying to do it all on your own. Like Africrea, if you want to sell on Africrea actually have a WhatsApp group for Kenyan sellers, which they add you on immediately you join the platform, and they have also for the other countries that they represent. Now we are moving on to the website, having your own website. The benefit of having your own website, I can tell you from the word go, is that you're in control of basically everything. You have a lot of decisions that you make on your own without having to worry about terms and conditions changing. The only thing that would change, that would affect you directly, would be maybe your partners, like the shipping partners and the payment partners for your platform. I would definitely advise that you just use a payment partner to help you with your pay because of security, cybersecurity. Do not try and think that it is, unless you just have the money to integrate some of these things on your own. Sometimes it's just better to use a partner. One of the ones I would recommend that I think works generally well are MPESA and DPO. Definitely do your research and check, see if it's worth it before you take my word for it. But yeah, they would work very well for you here in Kenya. So examples of web hosting platforms are like GoDaddy, Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, WooCommerce, and WordPress. So I personally, for my shop, I use WordPress. It has worked well for me. It's easy to use. I do not need to contact my web hosting person all the time to change things. I can do it by myself. The backend is very easy to use, so definitely do your research. I don't pay a lot for the package I've taken with the person who's hosting for me, also because I do a lot of the changes myself and I can upload and remove things by myself. So just check. A lot of these places work well depending on what it is you're doing and how you want things to work and how compatible it is with the systems you want to implement. So the online store setup checklist. Definitely think about your target audience. Of course, when you're creating your clothes, you already know who is your customer. So ensure that you know who your customer is and figure out if they shop online and how they shop online, because that will make you know which products to put online. Because actually, if you are targeting tall plus size women, then you know that your products will have to be for tall plus size women. So you will be able to choose the right products to put on your website. Choose a business structure that you will use. An example of a business structure would be, are you doing made to measure or are you doing mass produced clothes? So you could put samples and ask people to order. I do that a lot on my website. I ask people to order if I have something already on their size, because most of the time I'll make maybe 4, and then if it fits them, I sell. If it doesn't fit them, most of the time they have to choose another fabric, because I also use limited edition fabrics and I make that very clear. And so far, so good. Choose your web hosting platform. Make sure it works well for you. Make sure that their service is good and that they're available when you have questions. So choose a good web hosting platform. Design your website. Make sure by the time you're choosing your design for your website, you know what you want it to do. My advice would be for fashion designers. Most of the time, a lot of fashion designers' websites, at the bottom is usually written who made for them their website, or even the template they're using. So a lot of these web designers know which templates they are. So you can check that. Sometimes it's easier, and that's why sometimes I like buying competitors' items, just to see how their website works and to see how if it's something I would want to implement. Because for me, a user-friendly website is very important. And also, don't forget, it should be good on mobile as well. Connect a payment gateway. So basically, how people will pay the payment services. Figure out delivery and logistics, how it will get to the person. If you're not ready to deliver outside of your country, do not include it. Just say you don't deliver yet or something. Get your store ready for launch. Have a launch if it's possible. A good way to have a launch is to always have content where you're anticipating to launch your website, and have a countdown on your social media pages. Just create a whole fuss about it, and then you can launch your store, and then eventually you can market your store. You can always direct, as I said last week, direct people to your website. All the people on your social media, direct them to your website. Make sure it's obvious that people should shop to your website, just to control having to navigate different sales from different platforms. Just direct people to your website. So, online shop must-haves, the things your shop must have. Never forget these things. Photos and videos of your products. I mentioned this last time. Have your photos and videos. Have them. People need to interact with your clothes online and have a feel or a sense of it. Make sure your descriptions are on point, including fabric content, because people are allergic to fabrics out here. If you do not write fabric content, you might have a very big problem later with people returning things, because you said it was cotton and it was polycotton, or you said it was satin and it is silk, and it is, you just need to be very, very specific. Pricing in USD is always safe if you can't change your currencies, or if the system cannot change currencies. Sizing charts are important, but always ensure that you have added the measurements of busts, waist, and hips, especially for women. For men, there's usually a neck measurement for shirts, shoulder measurements, chest measurements, length. There's so many measurements. You can add as many or as few as you want. Automated payments, always important. If it's not automated, sometimes people get discouraged from shopping to you. An easy way to communicate with you is very important. You could direct people to WhatsApp chat. A lot of WhatsApp seems to be able to be integrated into websites. If it's not possible to do a WhatsApp chat, have an email service or something like that. A lot of my clients either reach me via WhatsApp or email. Have your shipping and return policies very, very clear, especially because fashion is very notorious for getting a lot of returns, because people either shop for the wrong sizes or are playing a game where they are using it for they use your clothes for things and just return them. So just be very, very strict with shipping and return policies. Have a frequently asked questions page, because you never know, some things always come up and you're always answering them, and it's important that you just get that clear for your clients. And then have your stockists mentioned. This one is important, especially because next week we are discussing physical stores, and you might have clients who want to just buy things physically, and it doesn't hurt to have a place where your clients can physically buy your items. So just have that and indicate where possible, and always just look for partners on the ground that you can physically sell your clothes on, not just online. So I know this video has been pretty long, longer than probably some of the others I usually do, but I do think that the information is important, and I wanted to give you my conclusion on what I think you should really have as your take home. If everything else has worked out, these are the things that you have to think about as your conclusion. I would say that you just start from where you are. I know it's very overwhelming, and the truth is that you will not get all the steps right at the first try. Start where you are and build on it. Start with one item, see how it goes, see if people are clicking on it. If possible, start with the most popular thing. Ask your clients, instead of buying from me, buy online. I'm trying to test my website. I want to see how it is. Even before you advertise it to your international audience, it's important to get that feedback. And especially if you decided to start on an e-commerce platform, that would also help you know if the service is good. If you want, what I do is, on a lot of e-commerce platforms, is I will buy another customer's outfit and see how the service is on that platform before I even sign up on it. It's always important to basically experience what your clients will experience, so that if they tell you, I did this, but this didn't happen and all that didn't work. I can definitely compliment Shop Z2 customer care, where I managed to get advice on the size of tights I was buying from the platform on WhatsApp, and it was spot on. And then for a platform like Umoja Shoes, they are not an e-commerce platform, they just sell their shoes online. It's a company, and some of the shoes was the right size and other shoes was not the right size, and it really disappointed me because I had to deal with returning it, changing the size, spending more money on delivery fees and all that. So just ensure that you know how the platforms work for sure. Customer reviews are very important. It actually makes or breaks your site. Some people actually look at the customer reviews before they purchase from you, especially abroad where it's very popular to check the reviews. It's very, very important that you ask your customers to write reviews for you. I have reviews that I put mostly on my social media platforms like Instagram, and I have others that I have put on my, if you Google my business that they now call Maps, you will find reviews there. I found that way anyone searching for my brand will see the reviews, even if they're not on my site. But I do also have a few reviews on my site, so reviews are just important. You need to have top-notch customer service. You cannot have mediocre customer service, especially for online, because in this country where people like blacklisting you and shouting you out when you do something wrong, it's very, very important to have top-notch customer service. Even if you're on the wrong and your customer service is great, you'll find that people will appreciate that you handle the whole thing with care. Kenyans and Twitter is crazy. You do not want to end up on Twitter for wrong things. People really can get after you in this country, I can tell you that for sure. So just ensure that your customer service is always very, very good. I would advise that you keep up with your website. and also your e-commerce platform, especially if you are selling both offline and online, because if you do not update your stock on your website or e-commerce platform, you will realize that you can get into a lot of trouble if someone orders from there and you do not have that item anymore. That used to happen a lot when I was on Jumia. A lot of sellers were penalized for doing things like that, and it used to cause a lot of issues, and it also actually affected Jumia as a website, as a bad place to shop, that people are not trustworthy and you will not get quality. So there is a lot to consider when you're giving a service, so ensure that you do it very well. Ensure that you have a good internet service provider. Most of the time you will need to keep checking if you have an order. A lot of e-commerce platforms have a system where you get an alert on your phone, preferably text, but most of them will be email, and they give you approximately maybe 24 hours to fulfill the order. So just make sure your internet is good and you're always checking. It's a full-time job, trust me. And you're always selling, even if you are off in another country, people are awake, you are asleep. So it's always important to have that. And also just ensure, even with your own website, there is a way you're getting an alert. So make sure that the person who is hosting your website also gives you that as a service for your website. As I mentioned, you keep up with your inventory, make sure it's up to date. If you're adding new things, make sure you add it in all platforms. There are people who do both e-commerce and their own website, so make sure you do that. Sometimes you find that there are some things that sell better on your e-commerce platform and others sell better on your website. So sometimes you could put more on e-commerce and more on your website, so it really just depends. Your customers definitely are not the same most times in both of those platforms. Prioritize search engine optimization, which is basically the science of trying to get to the top of the Google search. I do not understand it fully. Most of the time I'm trying to figure it out. Sometimes I even wonder how to find my website. I am not going to tell you that I'm an expert at it, but I know that there are some words you use and methods you use to appear. And I'm not saying that you'll always appear number one in all searches, but you'll find that if someone is looking for a Kanga dress, I should appear on the first page of Google, preferably at the top, but at least on the first page, because we all know rarely do we ever go to the second or the third or the fourth page. So that is what search engine optimization is. The more specific you are with your keywords, you should appear in that search. So even if you write dresses is too vague and too general, so anything can appear. But if you're writing like for me, because I do Kanga clothes, so if I write Kanga or I write cotton print dresses, that should be one of the top ranks in search engine optimizations. I would also suggest that if you do happen to sell a lot on social media platforms, consider directing all those sales to your website. It is just easier for you to be able to manage sales, and especially if you have someone handling online sales and everything like that. It's important that the more you grow, the more formal you are with selling. I know there are some people who just want to talk to you on WhatsApp, they just want to buy it from WhatsApp, and some people just want to buy it from your Instagram and all that. That is nice and everything, but sometimes those systems fail you, so the only option you have sometimes is your website, because those are all third-party systems. So it's just something worth noting and considering. So I hope you've learned a lot from me. I know it's a lot of information, and I know you probably have to keep on coming back to this video to check what I said, so that you can know the things you may have left out or the things you need to work on. And I hope I'll see you next week when we discuss physical shops. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and I will see you